to order the Town Council meeting for Tuesday, February 4th. We always begin by saying the pledge, so if everyone will rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Connie Reed.
Here.
Carl Kincaid.
Here.
Jacob Puckett.
Here.
Brian Hill.
Here.
Doc Clover.
Here.
Okay, so we will begin by approving the minutes for the January 7th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions about the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the January 7th meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will move on to the public comment portion of the meeting, and just want to remind all of our guests to please be respectful and use appropriate language when speaking before the council. Thank you. So the first speaker that we have requested tonight is to consider on first reading rezoning request for U.S. tract work for map 95 parcel 072 from R1 to R3, and that is Mr. McArdle.
Watch it. Did anybody else sign up?
I think it's just you.
Good. But I'm going to do the fire truck thing first. This fire truck thing's way easier. I'm just curious with the ladder truck if we've considered any other options yet. Or are we going to wait until we got to buy it? And if not, who's doing the search? I mean, you guys decided not to buy it last time. What are we doing now? Because I didn't see it on the agenda. Like, there's grants, there's used trucks, there's leasing, there's not buying it at all. There's a lot of options. Somebody should be spearheading that effort, because it's a lot of money. Alright, and then the R3 thing. I think it's a great idea that the planning commission recommended not doing it. There's only so much commercial around in Wheat Bluff. And then I'd like to thank Mike and Kate for joining the planning commission. Obviously they did pretty good their first meeting with not recommending the R3 and then bringing up the billboard information. But then the real problem I had is with Carl. I found your Facebook post a little less welcoming than I would have expected. I found your comments uncalled for, unwarranted, and denigrating to the council and to the mayor. And personally, I found your behavior reprehensible and unethical. And hopefully, Andrew can figure out if you should be able to do that anymore. I think it's ridiculous that you would go on Facebook and say the stuff you did. And I did keep my language clean.
Okay, that is the end of the public comment section. There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. Communication from the mayor. The only thing that I have to add is that recently we have had a job posting that I think is on the town website, or it's on the Facebook page, and it is for administrative assistant, so feel free to check that out or share it with others. Okay, so moving on to the budget and finance section, we are going to review the December 2024 financial statement first. And Misty put together some notes for us at the work session. So has anyone come up with any other questions since then?
no questions. The financial statement, we're looking really good. We have over the 50% of our revenue, and we've spent less than the 50% of our expenditures.
And that is where we should be for the month of December, at 50%.
Thought you did an excellent job. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any questions before we move on?
What was that one thing that we got from, was it the county? That they were like more than usual?
It's the tax equivalent. I think it was from maybe the electors
Yeah,
department,
they-
possibly. Way more than we budgeted for.
Is it under the payments in lieu of property taxes category?
That's why we're sitting at 455%.
Yes.
But as the year goes on, we don't expect another one like that, so I guess that will eventually come back down to 100% or something like that.
It's going to remain quite high because we were not expecting that much at all. So,
And I guess they didn't ask, or we just don't want to poke the bear or anything.
well, we rocked the boat. We called and said, hey, we weren't expecting it. And they were like, no, it's right, it's correct.
Yeah, I'd hate for them to say, oh, wait a minute, we gave you too much. So they can take it back. Okay. Sure, doesn't hurt.
Where are we at on your proposal for another census?
I'm sorry?
Your thoughts on another census? We talked about that in bouncing around as far as finances.
We just take a big risk. I mean, it would be great if we did and everybody participated, but it would be lost money if we didn't get the participation we needed. So possibly a wash.
The library donations are 3 times more than we expected, but what is that?
So we had the Methodist Church donate 5,000?
And then our miscellaneous is 761%. Is that still having to do with, oh, it's a grant. It doesn't have anything to do with Mr. Bid paying something off.
Well, he paid off the civic center.
That's probably in there.
But that was in the last fiscal year.
That's what I thought.
Is this the LPRF grant or the CD?
I don't know, I mean, I'm assuming it has something to do, but I don't know.
Well, we budgeted 50,000, it's at 380,000.
I think that has to do, excuse me, with the sidewalk project.
Oh, okay.
And is that money maybe that's been pulled out to pay for professional services,
It would either be that or engineering,
engineering fees, or
administrative engineering.
Looks like on the expenditure side, it's pretty even. There's no wild numbers on the expenditure side.
The only thing that stands out is the police department at 82, but that's because of the clerk. So we have to put that in there.
That's good.
anything else on the December financial statement? If not, Mr. Poole, who is our local auditor, or our auditor for the town of White Bluff, he is here to discuss the most recent audit that we've received. And you guys were given a copy at the work session. So, Mr. Poole, you want to come on up?
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is John Poole. I'm a CPA hired to perform the state required annual audit. If you do happen to have those audit booklets, let me have you turn to page 16. I promise I won't talk too much about numbers, but I do want to go through some of the significant ones. And while you guys are turning to that page, when we say that we, as your auditors, perform the state-required annual audit, just kind of want to talk about what that is, what we did, what we found with nothing. But really, we're trying to do three things related to this audit. One, make sure that we, the town, provide the state the financial information that they require in their oversight capacity. We certainly believe that that report, as of June 30, 24, has it. Every year the state reviews our audit reports and they give us comments, and luckily we've not had any significant comments. So I'm pretty comfortable that the information in that report will satisfy the state. And so the other things we do is looking to make sure that the town is receiving the money it should be receiving, whether that's from the annual property taxes, monthly amounts that we get in sales tax from the county, the monthly amounts that we get from the state, which is sales tax and gasoline taxes, interest income, which is an important source of revenue, which we'll talk about here in a minute, fines and fees, once again, making sure that we account for the donations that have been so generously given, those kind of things, just looking to make sure, as auditors, that we feel comfortable that the town is getting the monies that we should. And we certainly believe that to be the case. As it relates to your property taxes, you know, you have so many properties, you're going to have some folks that get a little delinquent in making those payments, and we do a good job of turning that over to the county for future collections. And then once those monies are kind of in City Hall, making sure that we're handling those monies appropriately. You know, state law requires us to deposit those monies within 3 days. Obviously, the town uses approved financial institutions, and so we just didn't, as auditors, we didn't see anything related to the receipt of monies that gave us any concern. And then the third thing that we do that we think is probably most important to the citizens and the members of this board is looking at the monies that the town's management has spent. You guys authorized a budget by departments that department heads are responsible and accountable for, and then we're just looking as auditors doing the things you would want us to do, looking to make sure that the monies being spent are being spent on town funds, on town visits. We certainly didn't see anything that gave us any concern to that. Making sure, because you know sometimes we do have grants, if we're following grant guidelines when it comes to our purchasing, making sure when items are required to be bid that those things are being bid, and then just, if you would, just making sure we're using just good business practices. I'm glad to be able to say is, once again, as your auditors, we didn't see anything out there in the spending of monies that gave us any significant concern. So let me quickly walk through numbers. Here on page 16, it's probably, I think, 2 pages I think are most important. Here on page 16 is a summary of kind of monies that came in and monies that went out. On that page 16, you'll see there are 4 columns. The state requires us to keep our monies in what's called funds. That's a set of books, if you will. General fund, where basically everything that we think about, property taxes, the sales taxes, those kind of things are required to come in. You'll see revenues at the top. In the middle of the page, the expenses. And you'll see third number from the bottom in that first column, fancy wording, excess deficiency of revenues over expenses, which is just a surplus. I wish we would just use English, but they don't. Plus 421. That's terrific. And once again, if you start on page 21, page 16 here is just a summary. Page 21 has the details of what these amounts are, if you want to look there. We also have a street fund required by the state for the gasoline taxes. Once again, you can see revenues and expenses, and once again, a small surplus there of $3,000. And then police has a special drug fund that they use for their investigations and those kind of things. And once again, little money's in, little money's out, a little bit of surplus. But anyway, so for the year ending June 30, 2024, and that's, once again, the third number from the bottom and that final column, during the year, the town of White Bluff took in $426,000 more, than what we spent. Needless to say, you always like to see surpluses. We all know the town is not in the business of earning a profit as much as it is providing services to citizens. And as we're going to see, I'm going to have you flip one more page, page 14. That page 16 was monies that came in and out during the year. Here on page 14 is what it's called a balance sheet. Things we own, things we owe. And you can see that that top line is probably the most important. As of the end of June, which I imagine the balances are higher now, you can see the general fund had $2.7 million in checking, savings, and that local government investment. Terrific. What does $2.7 million mean? It's basically, if you were to go to page 16 to look at the monies we spent, it's a full year's worth of expenditure. So you basically, in your general fund, have a full year's worth of expenditure. We all know that a lot of these monies are going to be spent at some time in the future on big projects, and so it's not like we should just stop having taxes. No, because once again, obviously, with a community growing like White Bluff is, we're going to need those monies in the future. And then you can see, once again, if you look at the State Street Aid Fund, it has $73,000, and once again, the police department's drug fund, $5,000. So overall, certainly, you would say that the town of White Bluff is in a good financial position. You never know what's coming down the road. But, I mean, once again, to have a year's worth of expenses sitting in the bank is terrific. I will just want to point out a couple more things, then I will, if it's appropriate, ask if there are any questions. I'm just going to show you this on page 54. There is just a listing of the debts that the town has as of the end of June. There are 4 outstanding loans. And over the next 10 years, there's payments going to be required. Well, the outstanding balance that will be retained over 10 years is almost $1.2 million. The number's 1.196. But once again, we've always paid our loans as scheduled. Mayor, I do not know if it's appropriate to ask if there are any questions. Be glad to try to answer those. Different meetings do it differently. So if it is appropriate, I would like to ask if there are any questions that I could try and answer.
I'm sorry, I was just going to thank you for coming, but
Can you explain the difference between general fund and checking account?
Okay, Missy, are you saying fund balance and checking account, or, yeah, okay, let me have you go back to that page 14, and that's just me forgetting, because you mentioned that, and it went through one ear. In some of the questions I know that have been asked of her, there is a term in government accounting and reports called fund balance. And it's a technical term. When you think of the term fund balance, you and I would think, well, that's the amount of cash we have. It is actually not. Once again, if you go through the state constitution and those kind of things, fund balance, think of it as your net worth. Your fund balance is not the amount of money you have, it's the item, it's what you own, which is, primarily cash, less what you owe. So if we had $100,000 and we owed a contractor $25,000, our fund balance is $75,000, even though we have $100,000 in the bank. So I think that was it's a terrible term that they use, but that's the term they chose. So if you ever get confused about fund balance and cash, once again, think of fund balance is how much cash would I have left after I paid all my bills and those kind of things. And so is that kind of where that's where you wanted to go. And so, because in the budget ordinance and things you're going to be using the term fund balance because, once again, from the state's, I guess, rules and regulations, you have to have a fund balance of $1, which just means you have more cash than you owe of $1, as opposed to just having the $1. So anyways, I probably went too much into that, but that was a good question, and I'm sorry I forgot that. So.
Like a net worth.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly net worth. And why we just don't say net worth? That's a good question for a different day. All right. I do want to just say this. One of the things in doing audits, just kind of want to mention this board, it was very easy to do Town Bluff's audit because things were very straightforward. One of the things that we as auditors do is we do kind of look at the information that you guys receive during the year just to make sure that there aren't any moving monies back and forth, trying to hide, because sometimes, you know, that happens, not at White Bluff. It didn't happen in 2024 at White Bluff. It was very easy to audit, amounts were straightforward. Okay, with that, thank y'all for the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions about the annual audit. We will move on to the codes and permits section, and we are looking at the U.S. tract work parcel, which is map 95, parcel 072, the request from R1 to R3. And as we discussed last Thursday at the work session, this is something that the Planning Commission sent out with a negative recommendation.
Yes, ma'am, it was, and it should be noted also that it was unanimous. We all said, ended up unfavorably.
What reason was given, even though I was there, I can't remember?
Because of the fact that it fits in our commercial guidelines of what we want to see there. It doesn't really fit for residential. That was just our, the way we were looking at it.
So if you look on the second page of your packet, item number 3, there's basically a summary sheet here from the town planner. And Ms. Harrington, she had stated in here that this request does not correlate with the town's overall vision and commercial development trends along Highway 70, arguably the town's most heavily traveled commercial corridor. So that was in addition to the Planning Commission members' thoughts for it to be, what was it, unfavorable recommendation?
Unfavorable.
So in view of the staff's recommendations and planning's recommendation, I would like to move to decline this upzoning. As I agree, I think it's inappropriate to have high-density residential on this corridor. I think it's more appropriate if it was going to be rezoned to be in a commercial aspect.
We need a second. Would anyone like to second this motion?
I will second that.
Are there any questions or comments about the request?
No, the reason it's R1 is because it was annexed, the back half was annexed, and that's how they come in as.
And the road frontage parcel was already R1 prior to the annexation.
But what if it did, C1, we'd still annex it, in the back half is R1.
I would have to see the exact application, but yes, given that whatever's coming in by town law is zoned R1, and then they're required to seek a rezoning now. We don't like one parcel being 2 different zonings, that's bad practice, so we want to address that, but yeah, typically yes.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so it passes that the council declines to rezone the property. Is that correct?
So Mayor, this will not come up next month, it will not be for public hearing.
Okay, also under codes and permits, we have consider on first reading an ordinance to amend Article 4, supplementary provisions applying to specific districts. It's Section 4.070, the standards for signs, billboards, and other advertising structures of the White Bluff zoning ordinance, and repealing any ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Mayor, I know there was substantial discussion on Thursday evening about this. There was one clerical error that I fixed, but it's in substantially the same form that you saw, so happy to entertain any questions. if you have them. I know a lot of that discussion dealt with, do we want to go ahead and proceed with this and think about any further changes, or send this back to planning commission with changes, and that's for this body to decide tonight.
I personally feel like we should, I just feel like there's a bit of urgency on this particular item, and I'd like to send it forward as is to save time, and then revisit it for probably some more adjustments down the road. So, I would make a motion that we approve this as is, and I would also like to request that we have a special call meeting for the second vote, if possible.
So just for procedure, let's take up this, and then if you right after want to make a motion for a special call meeting, you can certainly do that.
I'll second his first motion.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Edwin, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention what you had put in here. I was trying to find it. At the planning and zoning meeting, you wanted to limit.
Oh, from White Bluff Road to
Right.
Highway 40.
Is that in here?
It's number 12 on the second page
Yeah.
at the top.
First subsection A, it lists 1 through 12, and it's number 12.
Okay.
What Brian is wanting, how long would we need to wait before we try to make changes, and would it have to go before the planning commission to do that?
So any change to the zoning ordinance has to start at the planning commission. Technically, I mean, y'all could say, hey, go look at the sidewalk section or whatever and send it to PC, but it really starts at PC. So there's no cooling off period. You can send something to PC right now if you wanted. It's up to what this body wants to do, but it starts PC and will work its way back up to this body for first and second reading. And reminder on this, we're on first reading on this ordinance tonight.
I think what Brian was trying to bring up is, there's three of us that just don't want them here. So what is and it's time is of the essence, because it seems like White Bluff is getting to be a target for billboards, and we want to nip that in the bud.
Yeah, you do have to be careful in that you're getting into signage and some First Amendment right aspects, but I think, what is before you tonight is not too dissimilar from other jurisdictions. You haven't banned a certain type of sign. You're just saying in certain areas we're going to have a little bit more restriction, and I think really from the PC level, it was for the aesthetic, right? So one of the biggest shifts from what you currently have to what you're seeing tonight is that any, what we're defining as billboard, kind of tweaking it, anything over 12 feet or greater than 100 square feet in sign frontage has to be 1,000 feet from a residential parcel. It was 100, right? So I think that's creating more space between larger signs and residential properties, and that's pretty in line with what we're seeing. The other thing is that number 12 is along the 70 corridor right here from Red Light to just beyond Red Light to Burns Road, 47 east heading south. That no sign can be greater than 12 feet or over 100 square feet. So you can have signs, and you can certainly have business signs. And one thing that was brought up, I did want to clarify, business signs are in their own category. You can do business signs. You're just limiting how big that sign can be, right? And that's really the big change, because there were some pretty big signs allowed throughout town, and really the big limitation was within 100 feet of a residential parcel. So you've done two things. You're making it a larger distance away from residential homes, but also looking at this corridor and what is the town's vision, because that's expressed through the zoning ordinance, and effectively saying nothing over 12 feet, nothing over 100 square feet in this corridor. So that's what this is right now. Now, if this body wants to explore beyond that, you absolutely can, but that's really what you're seeing tonight.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve this as it is written, with the option of coming back and changing it at a future time.
But we, as a body, wouldn't be able to do that. It would have to go through PT first, right?
So just procedurally, you could make a motion at some point and say, take this idea and send it to PC, have them work on it, because then they have to bring it to you, you know?
Right.
And so it will end up back to you, but you can make that motion, that's not uncommon. And honestly, if you want to mention it to Jeff or I, we can put it in the hopper for the PC. I mean, that you don't have to make a motion, but if you want to make it more formal, you can.
Very good.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a vote on this as is. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this passes as is. And then, Councilman Hill, you wanted to make another
I
motion?
do, I'd like to make a motion that we get this back in for a special call meeting so that we can go ahead and push this through. But I agree with Mr. Glover, I think if not, we're going to see these things popping up all over the city.
Second.
So, need to state a date.
So I might suggest, just for convenience and to give us enough time to get it in the paper, I don't think that will be the longest meeting in the world, I hope.
Right.
Maybe, we have a planning commission meeting on the 20th at 6 p.m., either a little before or after, depending on the council's availability, at say 5:30. If the majority of you can't be there, maybe we need to do it after, but somewhere in that, Jeff, if you have thoughts, figured, we're already meeting that night, so.
I'm good with whatever on that day.
Will there be food served, because I won't be able to eat?
It won't be
I'll
that
bring you a
long.
taco.
It won't take that long.
Well, depends on if you stay for the PC meeting. So that's up to y'all if y'all want to do before or after. We just need to know a date and time certain so that it can be put in the paper.
What time is time after PT?
Jeff, how long is that agenda right now?
It's very short right at the moment.
So we could do 6:30, and if it's a little late, that's okay. It can't start before, it can start after.
Okay, so I'm good with that.
That's good with me too.
So is that an amendment to your motion to make it 6:30 on the 20th?
Awesome, yes, I will make that motion.
Can you include some food?
I'll bring you some to eat, I promise.
Okay, so we have a motion for a special call meeting on February 20th at 6:30 p.m. And you second it?
Yes.
Okay, so Hill and Kincaid. Okay, any other discussion? If not,
Can I get an email from Jeff?
I've got you on the list.
Thank you.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Exciting.
Before we move on, what would we like to request for them to be put in the hopper for PC to consider? I know we talked about during the work session, possibly just throughout the entire town banning it. I brought conversation about relooking at what the definition of a billboard is. What is y'all's thoughts on what we want to request PC to look at?
I mean, at the very least, I would want 1,000 feet from residential anywhere in the city limits, period. Any street, any road, anywhere. That would be my, and that,
That's what we have right now.
well, we
Proposed change.
we don't, okay, so that's, because we don't go down 47 at all with this original.
Oh, no, what's before you is so there's two parts. One is 1,000 feet from residential townwide.
Townwide.
But also a height and size limitation on the corridor.
You want the height and size limitation?
I mean, as far as me, I prefer anywhere in city limits, just no billboards. I mean, I'm okay with business signs, I'm okay with whatever, but I just don't, I just don't think that's, it's not benefiting us in any way, in my opinion.
There are some, an outright ban is, I need to do some work on that,
Got you.
because there's gonna be some hurdles, but if that's the will of the council, we can put it in the hopper and report back.
I would like to at least discuss it, and if we have to tweak it legally, then that's fine.
And if we can't accomplish that, I would say at least a height ban, perhaps.
Well, it's gonna have to be in the, we have about 12 different definitions of types of signs, so we may have to tweak some of that, and it really is gonna boil down to size. Where is that height and surface area, square footage limitation? So, if that's the will of the body, we can work on something and take to PC, and you'll get their thoughts, because they're gonna recommend it up to you in the form they find acceptable, and then y'all can weigh in on it.
Okay.
So I guess procedurally, Mayor, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but if we can put it as, if there's no objection to working on that, we can say that, or you can make it a formal motion. It's really up to you for something like this, because you're not voting on the thing. You're just expressing the will of the council, but there are 5 of you and a chair, so however you all want to handle that. Full-on motion, or just say, does anybody have a problem with it, and we move forward.
So you want to make that motion that we send it on to the PC?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the building permit report.
Mayor, for the month of January, there were 3 home building permits. There was 1 shed permit and 1 home addition.
Is there any reason why the one that is permit 2671, why it says the square footage is 0?
I would have to ask Paul
That's a
about that.
fence. That was a fence.
Oh, a fence.
Oh, that is?
Yeah, that was a fence.
That's not going to have square footage, is it?
Okay.
So 2 homes, a tent, a shed.
Okay.
Somebody actually got a permit for a shed?
Everybody's supposed to.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree.
Okay, no other questions or comments. We'll move on to the police department report.
For January 25, we had 434 calls, 177 traffic stops. Of that, we issued 201 citations, 52 warnings, made 26 arrests. 3 of those were DUIs and 2 narcotic charges, and 74 stops on White Bluff Road.
Thank you for noting that.
For driving too slow?
Yeah, headlights. In fact, I think both DUIs, 2 DUIs come off of White Bluff Road, so.
Okay, any questions about the police department report? If not, we will go on to consider a resolution declaring the Town of White Bluff Police Department vehicle surplus property, and you should have a list in your packet, item number 6. Okay, any questions about that?
I move to declare these items surplus.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments, discussion?
So, are any of these ones that were total?
No, sir. Well, I take it back. Actually, there is one on there that was totaled, at the very bottom.
the last one?
The last one, the 2017 was totaled. It's the one the insurance company paid, and they have picked it up. The other three, we will sell on gov deals. There is a fourth one that we are keeping per the mayor's request, that we'll have to strip the equipment out of. And I guess I should have put that on there. The equipment coming out of the other one, I can add it to next month to get it surplus.
You can add it on here if you ask the council to add that language in.
If y'all wanna go ahead and add that on,
That'd be-
the equipment out of the last, sorry to say last Prius, but.
You know you want another.
So you're not gonna donate that equipment to, Mr. Glover? No.
It's probably gonna be behind me,
So we don't have to amend the motion, Ron?
I would ask that you amend the motion, but you're doing it at request, so whoever, I think that Councilman Kincaid made the motion, would you amend?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
When does the deuce and the quarter come up?
I'm sorry.
When does the deuce come up?
It was on loan or given to the fire department, so it's due March. We'll have it up here in March.
Look, before you run off,
Yes, sir.
Miss Hollingsworth, are you familiar with her?
Yes, sir.
I think all of us had a chance to look at her email, and some of us responded, I know I did. And she was real nice about everything. How do you feel about this, well, at least to me, how do you feel about, I think I replied all and wrote my reply. But, how do you feel about the situation? Any merit to it?
This has been an ongoing issue. Ms. Hollingsworth is very hard to please. I mean, I will say this, you know, we have over 125 roads in White Bluff. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. If you break that down, that's 11 minutes per road. We spend way more than that on White Bluff Road. I mean, we're going wherever we have the highest complaint volume. Of course, right now, it's Taylortown Road. We're getting a lot of complaints,
So, what do you think about her criticism of the verbiage on the sign of radar control?
Well, it is radar controlled. I mean, when we sit out there and run radar,
Right.
I think, honestly, I think you need to ignore it. If you want my honest opinion.
Well, I do, but, you know.
I mean, this has been, like I said, been an ongoing issue. I've even spoke to people that she's yelled at going down the road. And sometimes people think that loud is fast, and that's not always the case. I've had multiple complaints about Bordeaux Metals trucks.
I'd be more worried about that than anything.
They have made it clear to me that they have GPS. They also have cameras in their vehicles. If there's any complaints, if they'll give them a date and time, they'll be more than happy to pull that.
They're just intimidating. I went by one the other day with a horse trailer on the back of my truck, and it's all the room we had between us two.
Yes.
I asked her, she didn't really respond to this question, but, you know, at first I wasn't sure if she was wanting to raise the speed limit or if she was content with, you know, and I'm just curious, she never did really reply to that. I mean, how do you feel about maybe going to 45? Is that something you feel would be a danger?
The last time I counted, we had about 90 driveways coming off of White Bluff Road in that little bitty stretch. I would discourage raising any kind of speed limit out there.
Gotcha.
Because whatever you put it at, people are going to do 15, 20 mile an hour over. It's always going to happen. And I know that she had mentioned, you know, making it a Autobahn kind of, so, but
and I would agree with her. I think, you know, that stretch of highway that's probably an area where they speed quite a bit. It's a straight run and it's headed to 96 and, you know, but I asked her, you know, that question and she never really responded, and I was just curious what she thought, because she said they don't do 40, and I'm like, well, you know, but you are right, if we go 45, they'll do 60, so.
Yes, sir. We've had a rate, it's been lower, it's been higher, and it's always the same. I mean, we're always gonna get people doing, you know, 15 mile an hour over. I would strongly suggest against it, like I said, with all the driveways, people turning in and out, the roads, White Bluff is becoming, you know, a very popular spot. I wouldn't want any speed limits raised. I would be happy if the speed limit was 30 mile an hour all the way through town. So,
You be writing me tickets left and right, I'm gonna be honest, I can't do it. I can do it right in the center of the city, but it's so hard when you get on the outskirts. I mean, I get it, I understand, you know, but it is all about safety.
yes, sir. That's what it is. It's about, you know, your daughter and your grandchildren getting home safe tonight.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the fire department report.
It is. You should have copies of everything. 71 calls for January. But that's about 3 or 4 calls less than January of last year, I believe.
So you and I spoke the work session about, we had spoken with that, some Nashville Fire about some other options as far as our trucks are concerned.
Yes.
With possibly looking at more of a used ladder only, because it'd be less to work on, less to go wrong, and probably could get it at a cheaper price. I remember, I mean, you and I, you know, the merits or the cons of that. But my question is on this upcoming budget proposal, because obviously we're getting into budget season, would you mind having us some options of some used vehicles?
The ladder without the pump, the only thing I've been able to find there is a tiller type, where you've got like the tractor trailer type ladder, which wouldn't even be practical for us. You get the small ones that won't have a pump on them.
Okay.
And if you want to look at used stuff, any look at used stuff. Safe has the ones for the tankers and they come from, they got 3 that they just took in on trade from Montgomery County or Clarksville Fire that they pulled, they bought 3 new ones. And they got 3, I don't know what I didn't get any information on, it's just that they had 3 of them.
I'd ask you to do me this favor, and forgive me if this is just me, then forget it. If it's the will, if y'all agree with me, then come with me as we ask him. I would like to see one for sure by budget time. However, as we all know, if you're shopping for a used vehicle, sometimes something just pops up and there it is. And that's you can't.
That's just the nature of the beast.
And so if you see something like that, I'm just simply asking, if you see the deal of a lifetime just pop up, please bring it to us. You know, and say, hey, I found this thing, it popped up, and it's a used one.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, because I would prefer at the very least to see one on the department head request. But if we find the deal of a lifetime,
give me a price range.
And I was going to ask you too, like we hear all this stuff about grants, right? The information I have been told, and I could be incorrect, but the information I've been told, there's lots of grants for equipment and things of that nature.
But not trucks.
Right, $1 million truck.
Not trucks.
I have not found there's one out there.
Yeah, and you won't get a grant for a used truck.
Gotcha.
You will not get a grant for used, and if you go through, the Homeland Security has a grant called the fire grants. There's another technical name for it, but the fire grants. But the most they'll give a department for a truck is $150,000. That's the most you can get. As far as grants, I've done a grant. I think I told y'all somebody I've done a grant for some air packs. Well, I didn't read all the fine print on this. I read the 5 to 10% match. That's, and what I requested was $328,000 worth of air packs. And we got the grant. but the 5% or the 5 to 10% matches, they will give us 5 or 10% of that amount. So we got $31,000 if y'all want to put up the rest of the 300 and something thousand. So, I'm going to respectfully decline that, but that was from the state, that was the one from the fire marshal's office. We got the grant anyway, but if I change it, if I reduce the amount, it's going to reduce the amount of that 5% match. So.
I'm not opposed to spending some money on a used ladder truck if that's the route that everybody wants to go. I mean, I don't think you're gonna buy anything for $250,000, and I think it's gonna be.
I probably think it probably at least in the ballpark of a half.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 35,000, and if you want to have any life much about it, whatever. There's lots of them out there, but it's a shoot. It's a gamble, you know. That's what the ones that I was telling Mr. Kincaid about. At least they're local. They're from Clarksville. And one of them's actually a platform, which has the platform that you stand in, and one's a 75-foot ladder like the ones we kind of looked at, and then one's a 110-foot ladder. But they're all. And I don't know the prices in the years. Don't know nothing about them other than they have them. They're available. I don't know nothing else.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we have our court report, and Judge Belmars is going to go over that with us.
You got numbers for this?
Ryan's my alibi.
Oh, I did it.
Let's go.
So last month, it looks like we resolved 90 traffic cases and 14 criminal cases for a total of 104 cases. We're generally able to get about everything that's in front of us resolved each month. There's always a few things as far as getting folks time to get in compliance with driver's license and things like that, but generally we're able to get that done each month. So what I had asked to speak with council about a little bit is we are mandated by the state to use electronic monitoring in two situations. There is electronic monitoring that's required for DUI thirds and subsequent, and so that is an alcohol monitor. It's defined in statute, a transdermal alcohol monitor. So it takes a reading every 30 minutes of someone's alcohol content. And then in certain aggravated domestic assaults, so any domestic assault that involves strangulation, serious bodily injury, or use of a weapon, there's mandated that we use a GPS monitor as a bond condition for both of those situations. There's also some permissive for certain domestic offenses, stalking offenses, sexual assault victims, that GPS can be used in those cases. And then for DUI seconds, we're requiring magistrates or whoever issues the warrants required to consider electronic monitoring, but it's not required to order electronic monitoring for DUI seconds. So with the DUI thirds and the aggravated domestic cases, it is required. Kind of how it works throughout the state is counties or cities either do what's called a direct, or they get devices direct from a manufacturer and run a program themselves, or they hire a third party to administer the program for them. So we thus far have not had a contract with anyone. The GPS statute does require us to have a contract with the provider, have a provider in place for GPS. That has been tough statewide to implement. That is kind of the field. That's the field I work in full time during the day. So obviously our firm's not eligible to do anything with the city. But it's been difficult to implement statewide. So I had reached out to a manufacturer. So the program that I'm kind of here to propose or to give at least open to discussion is to get devices directly from Scram Systems. They are the leading manufacturer of the transdermal devices, and they also do GPS. So it's a one vendor or one place that we would get them from. They're fully compliant, meaning both programs can be designed to be fully compliant with the state law. The alcohol monitor has to be able to take readings every 30 minutes and transmit that data daily. And the the GPS trackers are required to call dispatch and to call law enforcement if there is a breach of a zone where a defendant has been ordered to stay away from. And they're also required to have a victim notification app or beacon that notifies the victim if the defendant enters one of those zones or comes in proximity of that device. So I say all that to say we're able to get a compliant program. And so it's really two things to consider. You can either purchase the devices and then you pay a daily rate each day the device is on someone for the monitoring and all that. That would be administered through the city. Or you could rent the devices, so you pay a rental fee every day, even if they were or were not on someone, and then the daily rate. Rough math, of course, you tell the numbers, but it's going to take somewhere about 2 years to recoup that, for the rental rate to recoup what it would cost to purchase. After speaking with Jeff a little bit about it and everything, my suggestion would probably be, based on the volume we see, would be to purchase one of each. That way we knew 100% we could be in compliance, and if we ever had an increase or we needed a second device of either any one of those, we could call and request to have one shipped to us and have that ready if we needed it.
What's the life expectancy on those devices if we should purchase one? Because you said it's about a 2-year break even.
Yeah, so they're warranted, so if there's any issue with them, you send them back to the manufacturer, so they're fully warranted. It's like everything, they come out with a new version. From what I understand, it's about a 5 to 7 year kind of.
So we'd at least get past our break.
Kind of that. The GPS that just rolled out anew, so it's probably much closer to that 7-year mark. The alcohol monitors are, I think, further down in that kind of life cycle. But GPS changed quite a bit. The alcohol monitors don't change a whole lot from each session. So the pricing, so for the alcohol monitor, the pricing on that to purchase the ankle monitor and the base station, which that's what transmits the data to us. This uses a cellular connection, so there would be no issue of whether the person had internet or not. It's $1,809.99 from the manufacturer, with a daily fee of $566. If you're renting that, it would be $793 per day for the alcohol monitoring device. For the GPS, GPS rental is $375 a day. There are $2 in additional fees to become compliant with the statutes, meaning to have the 911 call and to have the victim app. So in essence, it would be $575 for rental. Or you could purchase the device for $645 and you would be at $480 per day on the GPS devices. So
Is the alcohol unit, does it have GPS?
it does not. So that will probably be the next innovation. There is a GPS alcohol device out that's manufactured by Buddy Systems. It's been recently released. From what I understand, they maybe use less than 5 or so in the state as of right now. So it's not gained a lot of, width yet. So it's very early in that process. But I think that will be the next move that the alcohol monitors do make.
Then you could just use one for both situations?
You could at that point. The daily cost would be probably different. So in the grand scheme of that, probably as far as the dollars and cents, it probably wouldn't come out much better because the GPS is so much cheaper than the alcohol monitoring and the daily rates.
So you're saying that we're not in compliance with the state because we don't have any of this, right?
I'm saying that, but I will further say that if you went across the state, I would say maybe 25 to 30% of counties in the state are in compliance with this. So we're not behind really anywhere anyone else is. We are able to get GPS right now, but I don't think it's fully, I don't think it has everything ironed out exactly how it's supposed to, but we are able to feel pretty confident with the GPS right now that it will, get the police on the way and get those things done.
I'm of the opinion that $2,500 get us compliant. If break even, it's 2 years, we're gonna get 5 to 7 years out of them, is what I'm hearing. I think it's just the best bet, just go in and buy the 2 that he's requesting and call it a day. That's my opinion.
Is there an insurance policy on those in case they get damaged during use?
I don't know, I'm not, from my perspective, what I do every day, we don't go that route. And I guess I have let this part out, so I would propose as the city, we would charge the defendants that are wearing these devices. That's the common practice, that's done everywhere. The market rate is gonna be between $10 and $12 a day. $10 is kind of the average, the kind of, where there's a lot of competition, that's kind of where it falls. So I would suggest probably $10 as the daily rate on the devices. So you should see that recoup pretty quickly, as far as paying for if they're used, which as of right now, I think we just put somebody on a GPS, I think this weekend or earlier this week, but this would allow it to be in the city. I do have some ideas if there are excess funds, that if we could create a fund if someone couldn't afford a device to pay for that. These are not eligible for state EMI funds, or there's a fund that the state uses for permissible use, but not for mandatory. But I think that'd be something, I don't know enough about city budgeting and finance that Misty and Andrew could look at, is that legal and is that possible? But it's certainly something that I feel like, that would be a good use of any excess funds, once the device is paid.
Now?
We are able to use, our probation company has a contract with another company, so, that's why it kind of jumps a couple places, for GPS. Alcohol, as far as I can remember, has only come up once, and that person was not able to make bond, so it actually never became an issue. So generally, we don't have a lot of DUI thirds, and for a long time, we didn't have a lot of aggravated domestic assaults, but it seems like certainly the aggravated domestic assaults seem to be a little bit of an uptick. And there was a change to the law, that's been several years ago, that added strangulation, that kind of changed that, and added a lot more aggravated domestic assaults.
So let me ask you this question, a couple of different reasons, but one, let's say that you do have a defendant that you do put this on for a domestic, let's say, and he takes a hammer and bashes it or breaks it completely off. Where is our protection? Number one question is would y'all know that immediately? But number two, what would happen with our cost at that point if he destroyed it?
Yeah, so it's a criminal offense to tamper with, destroy, or try to make inoperable any of the devices. And the statute also says that it can be punished as theft according to the value of the devices. So, that would be the route there. There are certain statutory provisions that allow officers to make immediate arrest for somebody violating their conditions. So if they found someone at a home, and if they believe they were probable cause of violent body conditions, they can make arrests and things of that nature.
Do we have any other liability if someone disables their monitor and then, commits another offense?
I guess that'd be a question for Mr. Mills.
I'd have to look at that. I mean, obviously, we can't control everything, right? And if you're committing a crime by destroying the monitor, probably not, but I'll caveat that I'd have to look at it. And what Judge was talking about, though, if it did get destroyed, we would have restitution available. The ability of that person to pay restitution can become a question mark, of course, but, I don't think they're gonna get out of
restitution. I mean, I was robbed in White Bluff 4 years, Chief Fulcher would know, 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't know when I'll ever see that money again. I might be dead.
And you may not. So, I mean, there's no perfect system, but I think it is important to note that this is one of those mandates from the state, unfunded, and we do need to look at how we're going to comply, maybe not tonight, but in the near term. And I think, you're getting into budget season, you got to think about that.
Okay, any other questions for Judge Delmar? No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving to streets and sidewalks, we are considering street lighting for a newly developed section of Taylortown Road. And there is a list of pole numbers for 5 specific poles where lighting has been requested.
So Mayor, this was initiated by one of the residents out in that newly developed section. We asked the police officers to go out and kind of take a look at that area. It is dark in that new section, so they have come back with a recommendation of 5 lights.
Would anyone care to make a motion to add those?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Did everybody get a copy of that information that Jeff sent to me about the cost? Yes.
Did all of you?
I thought that was very nice of him to do that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So Jeff, you contact the
I'll
electric
take care of it
contractor.
here.
Okay. Okay, also under streets and sidewalks, item number 8, consider on second and final reading an ordinance of the town of White Bluff increasing the speed limit along a certain portion of Highway 47 North from 30 to 45 miles per hour. And this is also the section that we know of as between School Road to Pleasant View Road. School Road to Pleasant View Road.
But it's not gonna be, it's gonna be at,
I'm sorry, span.
Span Road.
Yes, sir,
Street.
yes, span to the town limits. It's going all the way.
right.
Oh, yes, all the way, yes, I'm sorry. So that is,
That's both directions.
yes, item number 8 here, okay.
And that's defined in section number 1 of the ordinance.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the second reading?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes, and so the streets department will pretty much just be able to swap out the existing signs.
We'll make sure, and I didn't do it until we found out what the council was gonna do, but we'll make sure we've got 45 mile per hour speed limits and we'll get those out.
Okay, thank you.
While we're talking about the street departments, I have a question about, signs for, littering. That's something that would interest this body. It drives me nuts, and maybe it just means that, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but my wife and I clean up, Park Street and Main Street, and between my house and the farm, I mean, we get bags and bags of garbage and stuff like that, so I don't know if a sign would help, if there's something that is,
I can almost say it wrong.
some kind of a, monetary figure for littering, I don't know. I mean, it works in Texas, their motto is, don't mess with Texas.
Littering's already a crime.
Now, that,
You just have to get caught.
if we can remind people that, quit throwing your Bud Light cans. I don't know if that's something we'd be interested in initiating.
I'd say it couldn't hurt. Always something follow through on the trash cans that the school brought up to us.
We could get some estimates and bring it back to the council as to what the signs would cost.
I think it'd be appropriate, because that's really not on the agenda, to say you want it on the next work session. Would be the best way.
Okay, so we'll add that to March.
I mean, it can be a sign, keep White Bluff beautiful or something like that.
Okay, is there anything under Parks and Recreation?
Yes, Mayor, I know that I think it's the 20th that the bids for the concession stand at Veterans Park are gonna be open. And because we're getting into the schools, baseball, softball season, and we'll need the concession stand out there, I'm gonna ask that the awarding of the bid be added to the special call meeting that we're having on the 20th.
Motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to add the concession stand bid opening vote to the special call meeting on February 20th. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I have a question. Have we gotten a lot of bids?
I have no idea, that's not,
Oh, okay.
Well, I believe there's a mandatory pre-bid meeting.
Pre-bid meeting on the 13th, and then the bid opening is on the 20th, and typically you won't get the bids in until day of or a couple of days
Oh,
before.
all right.
I know, right?
Okay, so item number 9, under old business, consider a resolution of the Town of White Bluff authorizing the issuance of the interest-bearing fire department capital outlay notes, not to exceed $455,500. So all of you should have a copy of the resolution.
There are exhibits, Mayor, and this is from the Tennessee Municipal Bond Fund. They actually put this together for us. We've reviewed it, it's compliant, and this is what they need to go to the next steps of the process in obtaining loan. And you can see the 3 banks that offered proposals on this on the very last, sorry, not the very last, second to last page.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the resolution for the capital outlay note?
I will make that motion.
Can I just ask for clarification and that you're authorizing the mayor to sign all related documents
Yes, I
pursuant
make
to
the
the loan?
motion, authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
I assume we're gonna go with the lower interest rate.
We're basically required to take the lowest, so that'll be the first step of 5%. Right.
So, is this 3 banks? I'm surprised.
That's usually what they do. Only certain banks participate in this program.
Okay.
Only 2 are local. I don't even know where the, what was it, West Tennessee Bank?
Probably West Tennessee.
Probably in West Tennessee. I'm gonna assume that's not local.
Okay.
Or maybe West is town.
True.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. Okay, so, any other old business to attend to? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Are you gonna,
Okay, I'll make a second.
okay, all right, thank you.
I didn't want to be that guy.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, no, but I did start out.